Hello, everyone. What's going on? Your boy, Leon, with episode 2 of a brand new podcast. So, this time, we're going to go and talk about a, uh, a different subject today. So, this time, we're going to go ahead and talk about one of my favorite movies, series of all time. And this right here is a horror slasher from the 1990s. As many as you can guess or may know this one from the late 90s called Scream, which was a film directed by none other than Wes Craven. Oh my goodness. We're going to get onto this episode today. Man, I have something I wanted to tell you about this franchise and how it started my journey through films when I was a young little witty bitty lad, and which started basically the whole teen horror. Um, it's really it's really intriguing because I can't believe how much that has shaped me, and for me to end up discovering horror films, and that was a really cool time to be around and be alive in the late 90s. So we're going to get onto Scream, the topic of Scream and how it all started for this franchise, because this is an amazing uh, episode I wanted to give out because, boy, I love how much the dynamics and how much it all came together. So we're gonna go ahead and uh, hit this and get this started. And guys, and real quick before I continue on, if you love this episode, uh, on lights, cameras, and Scream, make sure to hit the follow button on Apple Podcasts or subscribe wherever you are listening to me on. And soon I'll have a YouTube channel dedicated to this podcast instead of my personal personal channel on Leon LeGray. On my solo channel, I'll make sure to have the horror tag onto a different channel so you guys know what's going on, and stay tuned for more horror and thriller film content like this. So let's get started because I cannot wait. Let's hit it and let's roll it. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to Lights, Camera, and Scream, your host with the horror and thriller content. So, getting on to the film series that got me started from the beginning of slasher films, Scream. And that's what we're going to get onto today. Scream, and one of the main things I can say with everything about this genre and slasher films before before this. I mean, you've had slasher films before Scream's release of the 90s. And now when it came to this inspiration, the real this serial killer, you know, which is very iconic, Ghostface. And now you look over this point of the film, that's where I look over of the how much and how iconic it has been for many years, and now with over 6 films already passed. I mean, that's how much you see of this genre, on how much of that of the slasher films. It You still see so many of them out there right now, and it's still going strong. And however, Scream, however, when it came out, it just revived that spirit again with slasher films. I felt for me, and and Scream as a prime example just did so many great element has so many great elements about this as well. And now this, and also let's hear this as well. And let's put it this way: Scream, as I don't know if how many of you know this, but this film was pretty much based on a real inspiration. Uh, it's a real life Scream inspiration, and the one who wrote the film on this was none other than Kevin Williamson. And let me tell you something about this too, because we're gonna go ahead and dive in deep on how it all started, and the inspiration behind Scream. First and foremost, right there too. And I've watched this documentary the other day, and I figured this would be a very good, um, you know, a very good thing to talk about. Uh, Lights, camera, murder, and this right here was published. The video was released about some time back ago, around 2002. But if this is a better time than never not to talk about this too, because this documentary is available on Tubi. So that's where we want to go out and start this out right there. So so you guys can go and find this out and check out the documentary Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream. That's where you can find it. So here in the article it says modern horror movie making changed forever in December of 1996 when Scream burst into the scene as a brand new type of self-aware slasher. But did you know iconic horror flick was inspired by a real life slasher serial killer? The new Tubi documentary, which at the time when it was new, combines combines Hollywood history with true crime intrigue as it shines a light on the story of the Gainesville Ripper, aka Louisiana-born Danny Rolling, a real-life serial rapist and murderer who inspired Scream screenwriter Kevin Williamson to create this iconic Ghostface villain. And continuing on, operating between 1989 and 1990, Rowling murdered 8 people, 4 of them students at the University of Florida. He was also known to spy on women in their own homes. Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream lays out Rowling's story while exploring which aspect of his life made it into the film. So, whether you're a true crime aficionado or a horror movie buff, like myself too, there's something here for you. And continue on here, Williamson learned about Rowling's horrific story via a documentary and thought it would provide a strong jumping off point for a slasher story. The fear of being watched inspired arguably the most iconic scene in the Scream franchise. The opening prologue where Drew Barrymore's Chasey Beckers chats with Ghostface over the phone as he watches her from afar. And that is the most scariest part of that film too. And you do not know how well do those serial killers go over and starts to watch you. That's the real sense of that movie when you first watch the film, and you notice that real creepiness, the real edge, the edge behind your seat moments, even in that film. And that's one of the aspects that I felt that was really nerve wracking. And of course, at the beginning, of that film, of course, you find out Drew Barrymore is Chasey Becker. Well, which I will spoil it. Spoiler alert. She passes. She's dead at the very beginning of the film. Yeah, and so continue on. However, Williamson also wanted to flip the script on the helpless female victim and create the character of Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell, one of the most empowered final girls in the horror movie genre. Across its 84-minute runtime, Lights, Camera, Murder, and Scream explores the psychological that drove Rawlings, as well as how Williamson and director Wes Craven changed and adapt elements of his story for Scream. For instance, during Rawlings' trial, his defense claimed that he didn't know the difference between movies and reality and was driven to kill after watching The Exorcist 3, the factoid that helped fuel the meta nature of Scream. If you'd like to celebrate the peak of spooky season with a documentary that examines both fact and fiction, you can find Lights and Murder, Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream, streaming free on Tubi. And by the way, so anyone that's listening, you guys can look your this video right through Tubi, which is, from my understanding, still available as of right now. So go and check it out if you want. So continue on with it too. So I don't want to get too in depth with Scream, the whole Scream origin. So as I already mentioned to you guys too, and which I had no idea about the Gainesville murder, even around that time, which you guys can look it up, and I won't spoil much on the documentary. And let's say that the murderer at the time, Danny Rawlings, had a really rough beginning, and then from that point, that's where his life, he ended up choosing bad choices and decided to basically throw his negative emotions towards women, which at that point it's where it makes that murder, it makes him looks like a monster. But now you look at the film itself. The film is pretty much fiction, as you guys know, and I'm sure you guys can tell the difference between facts and reality. And the fact of the matter is that it was inspired by the murder were Danny Rawlings, while Ghostface, on the other hand, this was a very new concept at the time, and that's where you see Ghostface, and Ghostface, even like I said, it's like I've said, he's very iconic, and that's where you see so much of Ghostface references. And if you go to, I'm sure if I were to go to a premiere for Scream, I'm sure you can see a bunch of Ghostface masks, which I'm sure that's going to happen eventually, and I'm sure this will be pretty controversial for anyone that's listening, which I know many of you guys are probably saying that I will never see Scream 7 without the two actresses. However, in my personal viewpoint, I'm actually excited for Scream 7. And look, I'll come into seeing Scream 7 with open arms and see how I like it, right? Because I get it too. I know they were supposed to have the other actresses, but and again, there's issues with with that production, and because I think what I've understand is that these two actresses got in trouble because for speaking their mind, which from what I understand from Hollywood these days, you can't be so open about politics. And to me, Screen 7, I am going to be open about this because the way I see it too, yes, maybe Screen 7 will be quite a different, a different direction. And I get it. People were expecting the same actress is to play their part. And however, I'm okay, to be honest, because we haven't seen Neville Campbell I think the last time we seen her was in, I believe, in Scream. Yeah, that's right, Scream 5. And then throughout most of Scream 6 was you didn't see Neville Campbell on throughout the rest of Screen 6 throughout the whole movie. For those of you that haven't seen it. But however, I am going to say stuff that will spoil a lot of people because I know that if you've not watched the film, you should check out Scream 6. It is up there, and I do think it is one of the best screams by far, by far. And however, in no place of my own to me is that for me that's where I love about slasher films, and to me there are elements of Scream, they it does it so well of anything because it keeps you up to your feet, and that's where I see how it started to amplify a lot of the and start in those this was one of those slasher films that for me however it's like I've said started my journey with horror films, and then also to go back a little bit on um, the what do you call it, the Danny Rollins thing is that for one he was a murderer that killed university students, and there was a lot. If you look at and watch Scream 1 and the elements of what they've took out of the real life situation, like for instance the college campuses, and was one of the perfect elements of the film, and in the location like the college campuses, it couldn't for one it was done really well, and how it's executed there, it was incredible because um I look back then, like I'm sure you've seen tons of creeps in universities, and it was one of those universities, like University of Florida, of all schools, and that had to be the best inspiration coming out from that too, and what I've checked on that documentary is that Kevin Williamson, when he took that inspiration, that was something that scared him. The actual murders behind, behind this whole situation that happened in Florida, and he was paranoid because he had to close his windows, his doors, and suddenly that was an idea that came out in the bow, and that gave him the idea. Said, "Hey, I have an awesome idea," and he got the idea to write Scream 1, and that point on, that's when things started to go out really well for him, because before that he was before that he was a really much of a struggling screenwriter, and he was trying to get himself out there, and that was one thing that, I mean, if you're in Hollywood, yeah, I mean, anything can't scare you, and the fact that inspiration coming from Gainesville University just struck a chord to him, knowing that, hey, this will probably be the best horror idea ever coming out about this situation. This horrible situation made anyone go look into a film like this and say, this is how it's going to work out. And plus, you had the elements, especially with a legendary director, Wes Craven, in the mix of this too. Which, for you guys that don't know, Wes Craven is pretty much the director that's worked on films such as not Friday the 13th. It was Nightmare on Elm Street. So that was the guy, the director behind Nightmare on Elm Street. It was cool, and you know what? Rest in peace to Wes Craven on this too, because without the amazing the greats such as Wes Craven, we wouldn't have guys like that's done the Elm Street franchise and the Scream franchises, then also his one of his cult classics, the Last House on the Left, which started back in 1972. And I always forget this, that he did do The Hills Have Eyes, the 1977 version of it too. So yeah, and I always forget he did do that too, which is crazy. But anyways, um, yeah, but yeah, rest in peace to him though, because I remember it almost felt like his death only happened a few years back. Yeah, which is he passed away around uh, 2015. So holy moly, yeah, that's been that's been quite of a while, and yeah, and I will never forget that too, and yeah, because we're honestly the one thing I can add upon Scream, even were a movie franchise at this point actually is, yeah, let's face it, I currently like the fact that even with Scream 5 and then with Scream 6, even that which is its recent releases right now, I almost feel that now, since the new generation of people getting into the Scream film, the Scream series now, it's just blowing up even more and more as time goes by, and which is great for people coming into the Scream series. And as someone in like myself, the in like late '90s kid, and I got into watching the first one back when I was like 9 years old, late '90s, early 2000s kid, getting into horror films, and and also I did watch other films like Halloween, H2O, which that was one of the first yeah, the very first Halloweens I watched when I was younger, back then too. But yeah, it is incredible, and my my thing with Scream is I don't think I know a lot of people will say that without Wes Craven, uh, it will the Scream will never be good. I don't know. I would disagree with that part right there, because Scream will be one of those films that will still continue to live on and work its way around. But who knows how long it's gonna be? Maybe it'll stop around Scream 8 or Scream 9, and God knows what, because that's still gonna be pretty well. And I hope that when they work on this series, I just hope that they still make it where it's still pretty consistent, in my point of view, actually. And they do it really well without any issues with character development or anything like that, too. Because something I will say with slasher films, you've got some good slasher films in the past, but however, Scream does it well. And even though there are some quirkiness to the film, and I get it, like the first three films had its quirky moments too. Believe me. I mean, you've had its stereotypical stuff like the jock, the nerd, the cheerleader, and all the elements between it too. And one of the aspects, even I can continue to pile up on this as I go, is the fact that when you find out that the murderer ended up killing the students, you do not know who is behind the mask. That's the one thing I I tend to hold in, that is that you do not know who it is behind the mask until you start to realize little by little who it is and who's actually behind the scenes. And that's why it gives you the you know the tendency starts to build up throughout the time in that movie. And my favorite character, I mean, besides Sidney Prescott, and of course, and then you got Courtney Cox's character playing as the reporter. Uh, you would have, I would say, it would have to be the nerd, Jamie Kennedy's character, Randy Meeks. Yeah, that's my favorite character of all, and this is one of the guys that started about the whole rules of slasher films, and yeah, and his character is by far interesting, and I liked it as well because Randy Meeks, he and way to describe him is like, yeah, he's a geek, but he's also like a film geek. Uh, in general, like he goes about watching. He knows about these horror films, right? And he's one of those geeks in this group, in this group of people that bring the brings in what it is to be in this horror film. And for one of the rules is that you do not know who the killer is. You do not trust anybody, and that's where I feel that was one of the elements behind it. Is like, it could be anybody in your party. For all I know, and it could be somebody that's close to you. That could be a murderer, and that was scary enough as it is. And yeah, that was really an interesting aspect of Scream, and Randy's character just brings it to light, and then that's why I liked about his character from the first two films, first and second one, and yeah, and while I can say that Randy Meeks or Jamie Kennedy's character Randy Meeks, gets killed off, in the second film, rest in peace Randy Meeks, and that was one element I say about his character is he dies on that too. And even though he does make a reappearance on the third film, even though I don't feel that it doesn't count because he got killed off pretty quickly in, but it was one of the cool things about Scream 3 that it makes he makes such an interesting appearance on videotape, and then also a side note is that he, which I did not notice this too, but you see a small appearance of Jamie Kennedy's character Randy Meeks in a photo image, which I thought it was super cool that he was appeared and just made like a short appearance right through Scream 5. But yeah, overall, and that's one of my favorite characters of Scream 1 and Scream 1 and 2. And I will say that just to give credit to the main character, like Neve Campbell, for instance, like for her, and that was one thing is that she broke the mold, especially when it came to serial slasher films, which a lot of the times before Scream, you've had slasher films that they're like the women in slasher films were like damsel in distress, and they would scream a lot, and they will always cry for help and crap like that. And then with these film series right there, it wasn't like the typical thing that you see with women, and it's like Neve Campbell. It was she was quite of a badass. Put it this way too, it was super nice to see quite of a different formula in slasher films, and now that's why I felt that her character is just as powerful, just like the rest of the people around. So it was super cool to see those things happening in the making too. But yeah, overall I can't say anything bad about it. And also you got like legendary characters. Don't want to forget Matthew Leonard as Stu Matchard, which he plays as the eccentric and clumsy boyfriend of Tatum and Billy's best friend. Rose McGowan as Tatum's, Riley's, and Sydney's spunky best friend and Dewey's sister. And then the other one is Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis, as he makes an appearance on the later films like Scream. What was it? Scream 5? No, Scream 6 makes like a reappearance as like a vision. pretty much. And Skeet Ulrich, and then you got other characters like Courtney Cox is Gail Weathers, um, a pretty much he's like an investigative journalist. Yeah, like basically, yeah. So overall, that's why I felt that this was super super powerful as a slasher film. That even still in today, even in the 2020s, that's why I see it's still pretty powerful as a film series, as a horror or slash thriller series is so great, where it continues to be the film that still stays the test of time. I don't know what you guys think about this, because I know that this may not be your favorite series, um, but however, I myself, I love Scream as a slasher horror kind of film, and to me, if it comes down to like the top Halloween films to watch on October, I would always come back to the Scream series along with Friday the 13th, Nightmare of Elm Street, as my list of movies to watch on Halloween month, because these are films that I do enjoy, and I do enjoy suspense and supernaturals and other other sets of horror by all means too. But anyways, guys, yeah, I'm gonna go and put this on a very short note right there too, because I know as the fan base is still divided, and I'm not gonna comment too much on the Screen 7, because right now it's still in production. If I've not mistaken, as of yet, Scream 7, that's going to be a 2026 release, which the film is in production right now. From what I've checked in the past, in other reports on this, that is being filmed right here in Atlanta, where pretty much a few minutes, which is directly a few minutes away from the city of Atlanta, but which that's where I'm located, which is in Georgia. But yeah, it would have been so fun to be in the part of the production of Screen 7. Now I don't know if it's going to be too late for me to be like a background casting a character, but oh my god, would it be nice? Would it be nice to be in the set and the making of this film? I would love this too. Oh my gosh. However, I'm not going to give up too much hope yet, because I know it is still in production right now. Now, if you guys are up to date on the whole Scream 7 filming, guys, let me know if they're still working on hiring background actors, because oh my god, I'll be super stoked to be on the set of Screen 7. So if you guys have any ideas, hit me up, email me. I would love to find out more and more on this one too. Okay, everyone. So right now we're gonna get into the topic of top Scream favorite characters, and let's get right into this right now, because oh boy, now my top favorite Scream films, it would have to be the first two Screams, Scream 1 and Scream 2. I both enjoy it. Now, while I did enjoy Scream 3, even within its own trilogy, I did like it, but I have to say that there was a lot of suspense on Scream 2, so to me, Scream 2 marks it really well. So that's where I say that Scream 2 does top it off, which it is good by me. Now, however, the least favorite of the Screams, I would say it has to be Scream 4. Scream 4, when I remember that it was when it came out, I remember it wasn't like something that I thought it was going to be good, but then I come to find out more and more that I thought this is going to be it. This was a point that I don't think that they were going to make another Scream after Scream 4. and I felt that it was a very disappointing uh, release, and I just felt that they were trying to follow. They were trying to knock on the millennials. I remember they were trying to get onto this bandwagon where it was about influencers and coming to find out that the killer was none other than a girl that wanted to be famous for her killing. And that was the ironic part about this too, which honestly I expected four to be better because this was coming from a even though it was coming from a time where people wanted to be like this whole influencer BS and all that, and that's why I never liked the fourth film to begin with. So if you watch the film, the number four, you guys probably will know what I'm talking about. Um, as you guys may know, why I've have a quite a dislike with Scream Four. I mean, it wasn't like the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, but it was just bad. Even though this movie was basically coming out from the same folks, which was by directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. However, it was one of those films that I felt that it just felt flat for me. But you know what? One comes to their own, and not everyone is going to like a film. So that's just my personal take on it. So for me, Scream 4 ranks very low on the charts, and then also I would say what does rank a bit higher is Scream 5. And when I remember Scream 5 came back, and I said, I don't know if this will be any good, right? Because I remember I was during a time where films were starting to felt so flat, and I really gave up. Or I'll be quite honest, I felt like, man, these movies suck so bad. And I remember there was Scream 5 came out during a time where everything was so, to put it this way, everything, a lot of these directors and these people from Hollywood, they were trying to get into the excuse me, I can't even speak today, bandwagon of all things. And I just felt, wow, what the hell? And I remember going to the theaters around 2000. What year was it? Like 2019, and I watched like the Disney Marvels, and then the other film. What was the last film I watched in 2019? Was, oh yeah, that Star Wars movie. That was like the last one, The Rise of the Skywalker. Anyways, that film was garbage, and I remember clearly back then is like, I'll never ever step into a theater again because how bad movies were coming out. And then now, what do you expect? Scream 5, which was also known as just Scream, Scream 2022 Scream, and to me that film took me by surprise. And on one thing, I felt that movie on its, even though that was a movie that didn't felt flat, but that was a return. That was, I felt that it brought a good revitalization to the franchise now. And holy cow, it did a really good job. And I remember I watched this at home, and I had Paramount Plus back then, and I felt, wow, it is really something else. And I was glad I did watched it, and during that period of time too, which what do you know, it's it basically lifted me up, and gave me a bit of a sense of hope that now movies are starting to have a good revitalization. And I was pretty happy with the production of Scream 5, and I didn't know where it was going to go, and I said, you know what, I'm ready what's going to end up coming up the next one at this point. So let's continue on. And then a few years later, you had Scream 6 that came out. And in fact, let me make sure what year it was. 2014? No, it came out a year later. Excuse me, a year later at that point, which came out pretty fast. Um, uh, yeah, so it came out very fast. Like came out around March 6th, and holy cow, it was above expectations, and I loved Scream 6. And I would say that it is still a pretty powerful, one of the best Screams, um, uh, aside with ranking on Scream next to Scream 2 as well. And also, when I think about Scream 5 and Scream 6, this whole overview and this whole conclusion, I look back at it too. You've had like these new generation of folks that were in on it. Like I'll give you for example Mason Gooding, that starred in it, Jenna Ortega, and what who else was in there? Oh yes, you had also what Melissa. That there we go, Melissa Martinez, in the picture. That and you have a lot of these new casts as well, and then you also had not to forget the legacy cast, too, as far as the police officer that was played by Dave. Was it David Arquette? Yeah, David Arquette. So his return was fire, but I'm not gonna say too much on it if you haven't seen Scream 6 yet, which I think at this point it will be a very good time to rewatch Scream 6. But yeah, it is still a very strong contender, in my personal opinion. Still one of the best Screams, it that still holds standing right now, as it is as a slasher film. And what I can tell you is that when it came out, it had so many good reviews at that point, and which a lot of people praised on Scream 6 as one of the best slasher films of the decade, which was coming. This is coming from Hollywood Reporters, at that, from that review, and what do you know? At this point, now we're gonna see Scream 7, which it is still in the making, and where this film is going, I don't know what the story will contain. Probably will be a good follow up sequel from the sixth film. We'll see how this goes, and I will love to report more on Scream 7, and I will love to report on other horror films, more so on this channel, which I think it will be great to do follow ups like this. So, yeah, and which the only thing I get from this is, for one, the director, it will be Kevin Williamson, and then screenplay by Guy Busick. So that's where we are at with Screen 7 right now. So which Guy, that's the name, Guy Busick, is writing the story. So now the stars on it, from what I understand, it's going to feature Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, Mason Gooding, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Roger L. Jackson, David Ackroyd, reprising his role from which is a bit confusing, but I don't know where he's going to be in, because I felt that he died on Screen 6, which I was like, what the hell? No, anyways, there is a lot to be unfolded and a lot to be said right there too. From what I understand right now, Scream 7, and don't know how accurate this is because I'm just going by on Wikipedia, but I definitely going to go into deeper sources later on as time goes by, and where Scream 7's official date is going to be. Now, according to the wiki, it says Scream 7 is scheduled to be released in the United States on February 27th of 2026 by Paramount Pictures. So that's one thing it's saying. Now I will have to check on other sources how it's going to be. Now with that said, I don't know how the story is going to be now, because For one, Melissa Beretta and then Jenna Ortega will not be reprising their roles. And I've mentioned this earlier that the reason they're not reprising because for one, they are out of the project because they said something on social media that got these two fired. So yeah, uh, it's not going to be. People are not. I know that a lot of people are going to say it's not going to be a good film, even without the two actresses. But we've got the legacy characters to cover that at this point, like Nevi Campbell and then Courtney Cox filling in. And look, whatever the story is going to be, at this point, I'm still going to say I am still going to be excited for it. And do I have my hopes that it will turn out well? I don't know, but I am going to still my hold my tune on this one, and hopefully this will turn out to be just as great as the last film, Scream 6. So, anyways, what are your guys' take right there, too? Because do you think Scream 7 is going to turn out bad? I'd love to know your opinions on this, too, because I don't mind where this is going to go. And I personally think that the people behind the direction behind the Scream, for one, Kevin Williamson directing this film. It's first of all he's filling the shoes of Wes Craven. From previous director. I mean, my God, it is incredible. But dude, I've got to say though, I'm still going to be stoked for this, and even if it's going to hurt my wallet a little bit, whatever. I'll take it as it is. Anyways, guys, I'm out. We're going to get into the next topic coming up. Who knows what's the next conversation is going to be? Probably zombies, vampires, all that crazy shit coming up. So, guys, if you love this episode, love the talks coming out from this, please be sure to hit the follow, hit the subscribe wherever you're listening to me on. This is Leon LeGray out, and we are done. And see you next time, my fiends.